Come to order, 7 o'clock. Whatever the date is.
Might as well make the full announcement now.
February 8th. My glasses off to keep from clogging up with the damn thing.
Yeah, I read that. Oh, I did take them off. Go ahead, Ashley.
Alright, so anybody who's here for the shingle mill project, that's been continued to March 8th. Anybody who's here for 327 and 333 Waiver Street, that's been continued to March 8th. And anybody who's here for 4 Pleasant Park Road, that's also been continued to the 8th. So the only thing that's being heard tonight is 365 Concord Street.
Can I ask a question?
You may.
So for Pleasant Park Road, they advertised tonight, I would think we would need to open the
They do
hearing.
need to open the hearing, so I do have, they did submit copies of the public notice that went in the paper, and they didn't get any green cards for the mailings back yet, but they do have the receipts from when they mailed it at the post office.
Okay, so correction, anybody who's here for 4 Pleasant Park Road, we are gonna open up the hearing. Motion to open up the hearing for 4 Pleasant Park Road.
So moved,
Second.
In favor? Motion to continue the hearing till March 8th.
so moved.
Second.
In favor? Good? Okay. Minutes are pretty brief, so let's go through them. And then let's move on. No Ron again tonight, that's, disturbing.
It was at the third month in a row.
He came to every meeting when he wasn't on the.
Yeah,
That's right. I wonder if he's okay.
While we're reading the minutes, because they're mostly about 400 Forest Street anyway, Lavelle School. The Fraziers sent a letter to the selectmen, basically thanking the Conservation Commission for all of our work on that project. Just to let you know.
That's nice.
I meant to print out a copy, but I'll bring it to the next meeting, but they were very happy with
Well, that was nice of them.
Yeah.
what they, what we did.
how many times do you think it?
We don't have
I
any.
know, it's very nice.
Usually.
We don't, and we definitely don't get a thank you when it didn't go their way.
Yeah.
That was,
Because that was such a complicated thing too, we should have gotten that, I mean, so many oddball things.
I mean, that was nice of them to.
Yeah, it was nice.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from Tuesday, February 8th.
Second.
How about January 18th instead, that's Tuesday? We don't have
Today-
minutes from today yet.
Today's.
Oh, there we go, all right, wrong page.
I did it again.
Correction, January 18th. I think we all know that
Yeah,
was going.
January 18th.
Who seconded?
Yeah.
I think we did a second, all in favor?
Yeah.
All right, representatives, 365 Concord Street. Hearing's already open.
Make me
I
happy.
think it's been a little while, maybe you can just give us a recap. Sure. And then we can go from there.
Having these stapled on top of that.
For this all with Kevin Consulting, it would be,
If anybody from the audience can't see, you're welcome to come up. Beautiful. Thank you.
Friends with Kevin Arnold Consulting, here with the applicant, building scientist John Zimmer, and the attorney for the applicant, Walter Sullivan. So the biggest change from last time is that the two infiltration systems are now underground. They're no longer above ground similar to detention ponds. They're underground with chambers and stone. They are sized to do as they did before, which is reduce the peak rates and flows off-site. But from the surface, will just be lawn over them. This did, in the pond number one, adjacent to the proposed roadway, it did reduce the footprint quite a bit and reduce some of the construction impacts within the 25-foot buffer over there. Other than that, that's really about the only changes. The infiltration systems for the individual houses were resized as well. They were bumped up a little bit for some stormwater, to meet the stormwater regulations. Like I said, after about that, that's really about it. We did add also two. To meet our TSS removal prior to infiltration, we did add two storm scepter units. One in the manhole here and one in the manhole here to treat the stormwater runoff before it gets into the infiltration systems. And other than that, we did get the comments from Beta Engineering last week. Couple minor changes in nature to the plan. For one instance, there was lot number 7 that I forgot to put the infiltration system on that one, so a couple minor dotting the i's and crossing the t's, but I think we're pretty darn close.
Right. There's a waiver request in front of the board.
Yes.
Do you wanna go over that, or does the attorney wanna go over that with us, or?
Sure, we wanna, John, or?
Assuming there's some mitigation being proposed, or?
Sure. John Zimmer, South River Environmental. We've really worked to reduce and eliminate the amount of work within the 25-foot buffer. As of right now, based on all the design modifications, the only area where we'll be impacting the 25-foot is right at the roadway crossing, which is basically a pinch point for the whole property. That's really the only way to get access into the property. So to mitigate for that, and we've talked about this at previous hearings, we have the whole open space area in the rear of the property, which is over 13 acres.
Yes.
Right, Brendan?
Yep.
And then in addition to that, so that, you know, that will have public access when the project's constructed, so that's a direct benefit to the public. We've also prepared a buffer zone restoration plan, which we submitted. So there are several areas within the property that have been historically disturbed within the 25-foot buffer associated with the existing residents and the work that the current owner has done within the property. So we've proposed to restore some area within the 25-foot buffer that's been historically disturbed, as well as to restore a portion of the BVW that was filled historically,
That's in this area.
which was identified when we did the abbreviated notice of resource area delineation. A while back, they identified that as a historic filled wetland. So we provided a mitigation, restoration plan for that area as well. So, you know, from our sense, the combination of the restoration activities, the minimization of the work within the 25, to really the minimum extent practical, and then the preservation of that 13 acres, you know, we feel is a significant public benefit, and, you know, would outweigh that small amount of impact within the 25. Brendan, do you know what the square footage is there?
I don't off the top of my head. I wanna say it was 1,900, sticks in my head.
So the impact of the 25-foot no disturb, and what you're restoring on the rest of the property, I'm assuming you're restoring more than what
Yes.
you're impacting.
Yeah, I believe it's at least 2 to 1
And-
restoration to impact.
The restoration area, the impact area over here is where the existing is encroached into the 25-foot buffer. And then the area, the bigger area down here was about 8,000 square feet. That was the previously filled.
And one other point to that too is that the wetland down, well, I guess it's to the north, east. So if you can just point to the bottom, right around other side.
Down here?
Yep, so that area behind that wetland is a vernal pool. There's an area back there,
Down here.
and so we'll be restoring some of the existing buffer to the vernal pool. So that'll provide some additional wildlife habitat back there.
You good?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Jonathan?
So just to summarize where we are at currently, so Beta has issued 4 letters on this, performed a few site visits, and we've met a number of times virtually with John and the rest of the design team to kind of iron out the more technical details. To sort of give a overall picture, this project has come quite a ways since we ever originally saw it. Before this hearing, I actually had opened up on my computer on one screen the very first plan we got, and on another where it stands now. And what the project has provided at this point is increased setbacks to resource areas, including the vernal pool, improved stormwater design, and has also provided additional mitigation. So I think one of our big concerns on this project was this area not be, there's a certified vernal pool up here, but then actually there's a very small ephemeral stream that connects to this wetland complex. And all of this floods for a majority of the year, and there's indicators out there that say that the flooding is not just a result of a wet year, it's pretty constant. So this is an area that we had most concerns with because we did identify as a potential vernal pool, and the applicant was amenable to flagging it out and delineating it as such. So because of that, they treated it as a vernal pool, since it likely is, given its proximity to a certified vernal pool, and that resulted in them pulling back a lot of the development and providing a greater buffer to that vernal pool. I will say in regards to mitigation, you know, if the commission does choose to vote on this project and move forward, there are a number of special conditions that would need to be in order of conditions. A few of which, as they relate to mitigation, would need to be actual planting plans, a wetland restoration plan, as in plan view, like the layout of the plantings and things like that. We were provided a very detailed narrative, but we would need to see some more detail on where these plants would go and any proposed grading associated with it. But at this point, you know, we do feel that the commission at least has the information that they need to vote one way or another, not just on the order of conditions, but also on the waiver request. And the one thing I do want to add, just for the record and for the commission's knowledge on the waiver request, is it is a waiver request from the 25-foot no disturb zone, but it also is a waiver request from the 100-foot vernal pool resource area. Since we are treating this potential vernal pool as a vernal pool, these disturbances at the entrance of the site would also be in the bylaw, 100-foot buffer to that, which is a resource area under the bylaw. So John was correct in stating that that portion of the site is a pinch point, and it is the only entrance and egress to the site. However, it's still ultimately the commission's decision on not just issuing the order, but issuing that waiver request.
I guess I'll go last. Shelley, do you have any questions at this point?
The idea of providing a waiver,
We can handle it twofold if you'd like. We can handle the project first and the waiver second if you'd like, if you wanna kinda go that route, or if you wanna do it all at once.
Well,
Cause
well,
it's kinda
that's-
two separate deals.
yeah, well, that's my sticking point, that's the part that I have. Because it sounds as though, as I've been taking the notes here, that, they have looked at and tried to make corrections to everything that we were asking for. And so, for the project itself, I'm 95% there. And of course, bringing up the leeway thing, which is the waiver, I want it to be ironclad if it's possible, if we decide that we're going to do that, because having the pinch point, as it has been called, does not bother me too much. But to sort of limit the protection for a vernal pool, a suspected vernal pool, a maybe vernal pool, or it is definitely a lot of wetlands, because it was noted when we first looked at this project that there was a lot of dampness out there. That part I'm kind of leery on, but like I say, I'm 95% okay with everything that they've done project-wise, with the reservation that I have about the, giving the waiver.
So, before you go, Lorraine.
Yep.
Jonathan, the project as it stands right now, as far as DEP regulations, meets the guidelines.
Right, so it is important, I think, especially in cases like this with communities that have bylaws, is to recognize that there is sort of a twofold review that you get into, which
Two
is
separate
that,
decisions,
yes, you're looking at DEP and you're looking at the bylaw. So with regards to stormwater, per Gary's comments, aside from a few bits of cleanup that need to be done and documentation, whether you look at it the local or the state level, this project complies with the stormwater standards. And at that, complies for stormwater standards with discharges to what are critical areas, i.e. near a vernal pool. Then you have the wetlands regulatory issues. Under the Wetlands Protection Act, they have done a significant amount to mitigate impacts within the buffer zone, because as you know, even if you're just working in the buffer zone, it can still adversely impact the wetlands. So they have provided that, but the other piece of it is now the bylaw portion. And so what I'm sensing with the commission is that a lot of the sort of final deliberation on this is resting within the bylaw portion of it. So that's what it really comes down to at this point, is they have really checked all the boxes and minimized impacts to a great extent, definitely under the act, and now it's really the commission's decision at this point if they have done so under the bylaw as well.
Great, thank you. Lorraine, go ahead. I wanted to add that in so you could hear it.
Well, I'm at a loss here, because I'm just, did Beta do a report after December 14th? Because that's the one that I've been reviewing.
Yes, we issued one on February 2nd. That's our most recent. And what happened was we got a submission from the applicant at just before Christmas time. And right after Christmas, we met with the applicant to sort of iron out some details, because we didn't want to have to issue a letter knowing that we'd have to issue another letter again. So we did meet with them.
Because I noticed in this report, there was a lot of special conditions that were suggested that the commission be sure that we added on to the order of conditions.
So those carried through. What we do is we build every
Okay.
letter on our responses, so anything that's in that letter is still in this letter. So all those special conditions are still referenced and suggested,
Okay, all right.
with some additional ones as well.
All right, and so on the, I don't know what page number it is, but it's on, page 15 of this one. It recommends that the Conservation Commission be in receipt of a formal planting plan for restoration of areas within the 25-foot no disturb zone
Yep.
prior to reviewing the variance request.
Right, so at this point, the applicant has provided a written narrative on how they plan to sequence the work associated with the mitigation, and they have provided proposed planting lists, including the species, the size, the quantities. And so one of the special conditions that we recommended as of our most recent letter is that they then take that, and before they start any construction, they put it on the plan to actually show where these plantings will go as far as locations of each species.
But right now, we do not have the formal planting plan for restoration.
So you do have the written plan with everything on it, except for showing the plantings on the plan. Oftentimes that does change and it is subject to field conditions, so they're not always exact. But at this point, they've provided at least the species list and the plants and the quantities that they plan to provide.
And then the areas have been delineated on the plan, where
Right.
they're going.
So they show the areas, like you said, hatched out on the plan, but, you know, as far as, for example, when we normally do a planting plan, we will actually do a detail and zoom in and show each planting where it's gonna be located. That is something that could be handled with a special condition if the commission is amenable to it.
Okay,
Definitely.
no, yeah.
Yeah.
But all the other special conditions that are in this review will be on the order.
Absolutely, yeah, and then any other conditions that the commission might want.
Okay, that's my question.
Question?
I don't have a question, I'm sorry.
Questions?
You didn't do your homework.
I didn't.
How close is the area, the potential vernal pool, how close will the variance be to that?
To the closest work?
Yeah.
I
Well,
think
so
it's
the-
right against it.
I think
Is
it's,
it really?
yeah, it's probably,
it's pretty close, it's maybe
Probably less than
5
10
feet
feet.
off. If you've been
Oh,
to the property and you've gone through there, right now it's basically the driveway, there's a small berm, and then it goes right down into the potential vernal pool. So that area, with respect to kind of vernal pool habitat, I mean, if you understand vernal pools, it's, the pool itself provides the breeding habitat, and the upland portion around provides the upland dispersal habitat, because the critters that will breed in those pools spend the majority of their time in the upland. So the kind of, I guess, more critical habitat associated with that pool is around both of the sides, because that's where you have a broader expanse of undisturbed habitat. So the area right now, down by the existing driveway crossing, you're gonna have animals that might be migrating over that driveway to get to suitable habitat on the north side, but they're not necessarily really utilizing that habitat between the existing driveway and the pool, aside from being able to move across it into the pool. So one of the things that we were discussing was maybe we could add a special condition, you know, to put some signage right by there saying, you know, wildlife crossing or something to that effect, you know, slow, so that, you know, during those times of year when the vernal pool critters come out, it's a dark, rainy night, they're moving, and it's important that folks will know, because a lot of the mortality that occurs is on roadways and driveways and things, so that may be something else that we could consider.
What, is there anything that could be happening on the road to separate that from the vernal pool area?
To separate it from it?
Yeah, actually, well, what I'm thinking of is road stuff.
I believe,
Being that close to the potential vernal pool.
right, I
bothers
believe
me.
right now that area is gonna be pitched into the system, which is actually infiltrated underground. So you won't right now, there's no treatment at all. So anything that's put on the driveway, whether it's, you know, salt or de-ice or whatever, can sheet flow off. But that whole area is now gonna get picked up into the drainage system, so it'll all be treated and then infiltrated underground. So it's
So
actually,
it's all headed into the road.
right, so it's actually gonna decrease the potential for stormwater runoff and things to get into that pool.
It's something worth bringing up too. John mentioned the upland dispersal areas, so, you know, as John and I have been out in the field multiple times, a lot of the migration, I would assume, happens this way at the site. They probably head towards this open upland area, and then they have wetlands on the other side. One thing that we did recommend that the applicant was willing to do is the concern with a lot of these developments is, what I call lawn creep, which is, you have your designated lawn area and everyone wants more lawn, so they keep moving out. And so one thing that we propose to try and maintain that buffer between the vernal pool and the development is having post and rail fencing all around the backyards with signage. And that way, it's clear as day that they can only go so far, and, there would be a responsibility then, I presume, of the homeowners association as well to maintain all of those features.
To make that part of the
Special condition?
HOA agreement too, right?
Right, so you could you could have, what I would recommend in my experience is putting a condition in perpetuity on the order, and then require the homeowners association to reference the order in their documents. so that they
And
can always-
regarding also dumping leaves and
Right.
grass clippings and everything else.
Right, so the signage, so it'd be post and rail fencing with signage, and, I'm sure the commission could work with the applicant on what exactly the signage says. It could say wildlife area, no dumping, or conservation area, or something where it's very clear, and that way if there is an issue, no one can say they didn't know.
That's a good point.
Mhm.
What else you got, Virginia?
That should do it.
I should do it. This is my turn. The project overall, at this point, is a good project. It fits the area somewhat, and it meets all of our regulations, except for our 25-foot no disturb and our 100-foot setback from the vernal pool. Jonathan agrees that right now it's a good project, it fits all of our regulations, we've kinda gone over that. So, there's really nothing else to say except for the waiver request. Future reference, if this ever comes in front of us again, we might wanna get the waiver request a little earlier than this one came. I think the board may have taken this as a little bit of an insult. It was kind of taken as a foregone conclusion that this was gonna be waived the first 3 or 4 meetings when it should have been front and center. Project can always be modified, so, but anyway, figured I'd mention that. Other than that, it's a good project. It's probably good for the town. Anyway, so the board has to vote on the waiver request. I think the project, we all agree it fits. So what I suggest is we kind of do a twofold vote. We vote the project and then we vote the waiver, which we can do, correct, Jonathan?
Right, so it would be 2 separate votes. The one thing I do wanna say is that, the waiver's one thing that's sort of a more, I don't wanna say administrative, but more of a regulatory issue that would be on the record and referenced in any order. However, if the commission decides to close the hearing tonight and issue an order of conditions, just to remind everyone that does start the 21-day clock. So, within 21 days, the order would have to be signed and issued in the hands of the applicant. So just keep that in mind. We obviously, given the path of this review, we don't have an order of conditions prepared tonight. So if it is closed and issued tonight, I imagine there would need to either be a special meeting to review and approve it, or something would have to happen to meet that 21-day deadline.
Is
It's
it
actually-
business day or calendar?
Calendar days.
So what's the March 8th meeting? I'm assuming that's more than 21 days?
Yeah, something
Correct.
along.
Would we be getting into vernal pool, activity by March anyway?
Generally, so it,
So they can't do anything?
well, so it, that would be something that would have to go in as a condition, and I've seen the commission, you folks, put that on other projects where work in
Can't
certain-
work during breeding season?
Yeah, or at least you can't work within, 100 feet of a vernal pool.
We did that in the rink, didn't we?
Yeah, exactly, that was a condition of that project. So, you know, what I would say is there's a few options. If you do elect to close an issue tonight, you would probably have to hold a special meeting. The other option is, and, you know, I'm sure the applicant would have an opinion either way, is that if the commission would like to take a closer look at this order, we could have an order drafted for the next meeting. It could be reviewed at that point and then voted upon. So it's really up between the commission and the applicant, how you folks wanna do it, but the waiver request, that could be voted on tonight, or it could wait until the next meeting and all be done.
I don't wanna stack the March 8th meeting. But I think what Jonathan's proposing is probably a good idea. It gives the board a little chance to think about this a little bit. You can't deliberate, obviously, out of the public hearing, but you can certainly think about it for yourself. Is the applicant okay with not closing the hearing tonight?
We are on for the agenda with the planning board in 2 weeks.
Mhm.
So I don't know if it'd be possible to close the hearing and we could extend the time for the commission to issue the orders, if that's something the commission would consider.
As long as you're willing to give us a letter that the 21-day period has been extended,
Yeah, we'd be happy to do that.
I think that's fair enough.
Okay.
Jonathan, that's fair enough, correct?
Yeah, I would just, again, you know, I believe that was done on the, for the Pond Street pump test, order conditions. The applicant issued a statement in writing saying that they agreed to extend, and so they would forfeit their right to, you know, appeal, after the 21 days, so that's fine. I would just highly recommend that that letter be received sooner than later.
And I'll
I might have
represent,
you write it right now.
I can do that.
Anyway, so, one thing I haven't done, and we will do now, is haven't heard from the audience. I didn't forget about you, it's just I got in the groove and I wanted to get out of here, so.
I'm starting to think it was going along headstrong and we were gonna be.
Come on now, when I do that.
I would hope not.
First in line, go ahead.
Yeah, Martin Glavin, 292 Spring Street. I just had a couple of questions. I'm not sure if this is the exact same set of plans I've seen last, but I saw one set of plans showing a couple of stream crossings going to the rear area and a trail going around the rear area. What kind of, is that still proposed, and what's that gonna look like, or how's it gonna be constructed, how big is it gonna be?
So yes, so that's to fulfill the open space requirements, to get access back here. There's a couple, you know, probably be like wooden boardwalks or something crossing the wetlands. And then just a network of trail that circumvents the upland area in the back.
And by a trail, we talking 3 feet wide, 10 feet wide?
Oh, I don't know, it'd probably be minimal, just enough for one person.
Is it in the buffer zone at all, or is it in the wetlands?
The loop trail here is not, obviously the crossings will be.
I would just like to say that in our review, we did recognize that, and we did recommend that that portion of the project would be subject to the applicant coming back for an amended order of conditions, because sufficient information was not provided to permit that portion of the project. So any of the trail or the crossing, that would require an amendment to the order and a reopening of the public hearing, should the commission agree with that approach.
Shouldn't we have that up front?
So, it is dependent on how you folks wanna do it. We did recommend a few times that that be submitted to us to review now, because, you know, judging by the forest out there, there's a good chance that there really wouldn't be much tree clearing required for the trail itself. However, any footbridges that go in would need to have a proper span and a proper design. So, since it isn't crucial necessarily to the development of the project, the commission could require something like, you know, a request for an amended order of conditions goes in for that before the first occupancy permit is issued or something like that. But the commission can also request it up front since it's proposed work.
Well, I mean, it is a PUD, it should, part of the approval is the public access, right?
Well, that's my other follow-up question to that, is I keep hearing public access. Are we talking general public access, or just access for the common owners of the association? It's gonna be
General public.
PUD. General public.
General public. So that's the way I understand it, general public. Mary? Why don't you jump in on that one?
Well,
General public.
That's what I thought.
okay,
General
we've
public.
heard this before in other developments, and you go into those developments now, some of them, and there's signs, what was supposed to have been public access is access only for the residents, like French's Stream, for example. They got permitted to higher density, but they're gonna have public playgrounds. You go there now, and the signs say the playgrounds are only for the residents, not for general public. So,
Where is
going down
that?
the same road,
French's Crossing.
French's
on the
Stream,
hill.
French's Crossing.
Oh, the French, oh, yeah, up at Beach Hill.
And, I mean, is the public access being dictated by who? Is this being offered by the developer, or is this being dictated to them by someone else? I don't understand. Like,
Does the land transfer ownership?
who's gonna own title to the land? It's gonna stay with the association, or is it going to the town as town land?
I believe it's gonna stay as part of the association.
It's just gonna be restricted. by the
Then you
ordinance.
might want a sign that says public access.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Is the public access required
That's right, I
by
have
the
a
town,
question.
or is?
Conservation should be pursued
It's
in
part of
open
the PUD
space.
process, it is, yes. Those other developments we talk about, if there's signs up there, you have to, zoning department, have them taken down.
I mean, that's really a planning board deal, but I believe it's general access for anybody in the public. Again, it's not a conservation, it's not a conservation issue, that's really the planning board that handles the actual PUD. I mean, we kinda have dove into that a little bit here, but that really doesn't have anything to do with
No, I
protection of
understand,
wetlands, so.
the trail, the construction of the trail, the location of the trail, that could be under your purview, depending on where it falls on the site.
It will most likely be, yes.
So the trail wouldn't.
Mary, did you, I see you
Yeah,
waving.
I was gonna say something, because, this comes up in other places, and everyone says open space, and there's supposed to be trails and everything, and then you turn around and find out, and this happened at Fort Devens, that suddenly, because it wasn't protected, or actually stipulated in order of conditions that it's to be open to the general public, it's now private, and there are no trails.
Well, the only thing that I could say is, we can only go on the assumption that it's general public, and that's under the purview of the planning board, not really the conservation commission. As far as the actual construction of it, yes, we will have a say in that, but beyond that, it's really planning, because they're the ones who review a PUD. We're just handling the wetland piece of it.
Well, the activity within the zone certainly could have an impact, and that would be something that you should consider.
And we will when we see the actual design of it, which I would think we would have that up front, but we can make that part of our order of conditions, and they can't sell a house without it done.
And
So-
who maintains control of that rear area? The association, or if they're forced to allow the public, general public in there, they're kind of losing control of their area, aren't they?
Again, you're asking me planning board questions, and it's not really my deal.
Okay.
Mary? you
I
got
can
it?
answer that one, the association can be made to maintain those trails and leave it open to the public, that can happen. That's already happening in places.
I'm not looking for the general public to have access, to be honest with you.
I'm just clearing up.
Anybody else have any other questions?
Please, Kathy Boyd, 353 Concord. Relative to that, can the Conservation Commission make a request of the planning board to have the land controlled under the auspices of the Conservation Commission?
I don't think so. I think that would be the homeowners association. We don't own it, we can't really control it. We can control violations on the property, but really where it ends.
Do you make recommendations to the planning board moving forward with this project, or
Not
you
particularly.
operate as two separate entities?
Really, our recommendation is our order of conditions,
Okay.
which is pretty extensive.
And then, relative to order of conditions, if you close the hearing tonight, are the abutters and the public, supposed to have access to the order of conditions?
Not till we approve it.
And how would we know what those order of conditions are if the hearing was closed tonight and you voted on it?
You wouldn't know until we actually approve it, and that's when I would make it public. And once the hearing's closed, there's no more public comment, and there's no more comment from the applicant either. We're really at that point, it's just board deliberation. Did I answer your question? Anybody else?
Scott Crawford, 407 Concord Street. More of just a general question on one of the waivers of the 25-foot rule. Forgive me, I don't know what was voted on at the town meeting, but I could have sworn there was something about a bylaw for that no 25-foot zone that we voted on at town meeting.
You are correct, there is a bylaw in place.
In their requesting a waiver to that bylaw?
Correct.
And that's what you're considering?
Correct. If that bylaw didn't exist, this project would have already been approved. Did that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anybody else?
I have one other, just a follow-up to Kathy's question. When the order is, if you do vote on it, you do close it, and then you do approve it and release an order of conditions, the abutters will get notified of that directly, or we just have to keep track of what's going on in town hall?
What do you mean?
Do we get a copy of that, or the abutters get a copy of the order of conditions?
Well, you'd have to ask for a copy, and I can send you a copy, but not in general do we send out copies of orders to every abutter, no.
Okay, there's a 21, I think there's a 21-day appeal period where the abutters can appeal to the DEP.
As
If
soon
we
as
don't
the
know
orders,
the order's been issued, we don't know to appeal it.
well, the orders will be issued at the next meeting, in a public hearing.
Okay.
What's that?
10-day appeal period,
Attended, yeah, whatever, I know there's an appeal period to the DEP.
and that's from the actual issuance, not the vote.
Okay, anyone else have any questions? Okay, I believe I saw a letter. Is that me, I don't put my glasses on, I clogged up with the sign. You good?
It says, the applicant, Conrock, hereby extends the time for the commission to issue orders of conditions by 45 days from the date of the closing of the hearing, signed by the attorney counsel for the applicant.
What does the board wanna do? So I'm assuming you wanna close the hearing,
We do.
so request to close the hearing?
Yeah, because we're good with the planning board in 2 weeks, so yeah, we make that request.
Okay, does anybody else have any more comment before the hearing's closed? Please keep in mind, no more comment by anybody except for the board after it's closed. Anybody else have anything else? Okay, motion to close the hearing, 365 Concord Street. Motion.
Before you close it, issue a vote on the waiver.
We can do that after we close the hearing, can't we?
Yes, okay, as long as you vote on closing, issuing the waiver.
I don't think the
issuing
waiver's gonna
order.
be voted on tonight, I think it's gonna get voted on the next hearing.
Okay.
So if we don't issue the waiver, then we don't issue the orders, and we just don't, okay, yeah, just making
So you're not voting on the order tonight then either?
Correct.
Okay, just closing the
Just
hearing.
close the
Gotcha.
hearing. Motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Hearing's closed. Have a good night.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you.
We'll have a draft order ready for you.
Yes, please.
We'll get it to you before the next hearing. Take a look at it.
How soon will we see? You can we get copies?
I'm gonna send a copy to a couple of the abutters
I have
too,
your
even though it's
point.
not general
Mhm.
practice that I do that,
Yeah,
just because they wanna see it.
well, when they're here and they are paying attention to what we're talking about, when we tell them when something is gonna happen, if I were on that side, and I know Lorraine would do the same thing, there'd be someone who would take charge of the group,
And disperse.
to-
I know.
get to the town hall and say, has this happened?
I'll make sure they get it,
Okay.
Just for FYI.
because I'm a nice person. Right, Mary?
I'm being silent now. I'm trying not to speak.
Something's wrong.
Just for FYI,
FYI.
the bylaw is in the process of being changed.
Our bylaw?
No. PUD.
Oh,
Oh,
that wouldn't affect this project though, so.
No, I know, that's why I didn't say anything during the project.
What's being changed about it?
As far as the open space.
And it's more or less.
more or less it'll be under our control.
That was the question that I had on my December thing is.
I don't know anything about this, was anybody gonna make us aware of this?
Yeah, I was.
Oh.
I'm making you aware of it.
Oh, but it's not already decided?
No, it's in
Okay.
the process.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, it'd be nice if the whole board knew that we were gonna be in control of it.
Well, they want, what open space would like to have happen is that a conservation restriction be put on that open space property in those planned unit developments.
I like that.
I do too.
Mhm.
Why not?
Well,
I mean, there's already a restriction on it that can never be built on anyway, but
right,
it'd be nice to have it, you know. The problem is the conservation restriction might not fly because it can only be, what, 20% wetlands? It has to be a certain amount of uplands to qualify for the PUD process. Can't be all wetlands,
Right.
I know that.
oh, you've got the bylaw.
Yeah, well, I'm not reading it. You're in charge of that. But, I mean, I honestly have no issue with that.
Well,
That's a good
either,
thing.
it will either be under conservation, the park department, or conservation restriction. And that's
Well,
what
at least
the,
it
what,
clarifies
what,
where it's
what
gonna
the
be
amendments are
someplace,
proposed
yeah.
to kind of, you know.
We would have to have Bob Galvin review that to make sure that
Oh,
what we're doing is legit.
No, open space is handling that.
And they have a town council review it, or are they just guessing?
No, it's been proposed.
Because land use council should review that, 100%.
Yeah, it's been proposed.
Okay, so as long as it gets in Galvin's hands, that's all I care about. Anything else?
Oh. Yes.
Yes, you did, you said you had something.
Had a meeting last
Why I
Thursday.
asked.
Yeah.
With
do we have any bills?
open space.
You wanna do the bills too while
Yeah.
she's
Oh, yeah.
talking? I'm not taking away from you, continue.
And, we need to have a joint meeting with open space for the, CR that is gonna be on the, McCarthy Farm.
Mhm.
Because, right now it's draft and we went all through it and everything and made, changes and this and that, but conservation, we will have to have a joint meeting with open space to decide if we are gonna have any other restrictions regarding usage, you know, like, horseback riding, this, that, and the other thing. What's in this, we will have control as far as, added restrictions if we want, and we have to put up signage and things like that.
So do we wanna do a meeting on a separate night, or I don't think we should try to squeeze it in for March 8th.
No,
That'll get ugly.
no,
Could we do a Zoom meeting for that? So that way then not everybody has to come up here?
then you won't be able to look at the, see, this is the really rough draft. But this is gonna go to more changes and whatever, but,
When do you think we'll need this proposed meeting, roughly?
I think I should ask Dawn. when
Month or
is it
two,
going-
or 6 months or two?
Oh,
This
no,
backup doesn't match.
no. It'll be, maybe next month, I don't know, because this has to be reviewed by the state and everything else.
Did I mix them up?
No, this one's, alright, this one's that, okay, let me see what I got here. And this one's here. There's an addition on that one that wasn't added to the master
Did you get a copy of this prior to? Can we make a motion about the bills?
I did.
Probably not, because this-
Second.
what I
There
have
you
is
go.
really rough.
Do you wanna just pay it next time, or?
So,
And this
we
one,
have to read it before, during the meeting?
only as far as, well, I don't know, maybe you wanna read the whole thing, but
If you change
it's
it,
quite
mark it.
expensive.
Mm-hmm.
No, I didn't change it.
Oh.
Looks like
I
it,
just
that's
wouldn't
why I
do
was
it.
wondering.
Okay.
Actually, you can, let me, it doesn't come back, you can sign it.
What, the bill?
Okay, so the,
Yeah, they're telling you something.
That's fine.
the conservation restriction is supposed to be submitted around February 15th, but it's probably gonna be a little later than that. And then it'll be reviewed, and then we'll probably come back with more changes. But, I'd like to get some copies for everybody to look at. So,
A little homework?
for our meeting with Open Space.
Yeah, 'cause we don't wanna do it on the 8th, I'm gonna tell you that right now. The 8th's gonna be a
No, and we probably should just have just that, like a workshop, like, you know, we've been doing with all the different various.
So you just let me know when you need a meeting, and we're probably gonna need a couple weeks in advance, and then we'll set it up with the town hall.
Okay.
Maybe we'll meet here if we can.
Yeah.
Taylor, what are you meeting to review at?
It's to meet,
Conservation?
no, it's to meet with open space about changing the PUD law and, McCarthy Farm, right?
Well, the PUD, the Open Space is handling that,
Okay.
but this conservation restriction is what we will be, yeah.
So if the next meeting, if Shingle Mill does come, we're not gonna have it in this room. We're probably gonna have it, where we're gonna have it here?
What, didn't the lecture hall come up
Yeah.
unexpectedly
Lecture hall is at the high
at
school?
the, at the high school?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, we need to, I gotta put that on the agenda, you can't just switch the location.
Yeah, I know that. We have to find out if they're coming first. Which we will verify the Friday before.
Sorry, I'm holding you up.
And then the school department will let us use it, I guess, as long as they don't have something, I'm assuming. But we really don't want 100 people in here anyway, do we?
It'll be nice and warm.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, but, yeah.
It'll be nice
Social
and warm
distancing.
anyway.
Yeah, so is us. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So as far as, 365 Concord Street, you got 3 weeks to sit on this waiver deal. It will have to be decided on.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, of course. We can talk all we want about it.
Yep. Well, included in the orders that we're gonna give them are the mitigation things that they talked about with the 25 thing at the pinch point. I like that though, that's kinda cool. And the other part that was a historically disturbed area that they.
Significant wetlands are being
Yes,
restored.
yes.
Upwards of 10,000 square feet.
So that's to their benefit. That's why I said I was 95% in favor. If we decide, now the point that Jonathan made was that if we do the waiver, it's not just for the 25-foot buffer,
Correct.
which we hate to set a precedent.
I'm nervous about that myself.
Yeah, but if it's
Yeah.
going to impact the vernal pool area, that's just
Like I said,
smacking me right like that.
that's the reason I
so-
want the board thinking about it.
Yeah.
Obviously, no discussion amongst board
Yep.
members, but you really have 3 weeks to think about it.
Yeah.
It has to be decided at the next meeting. though.
Mhm.
Just keep that in mind.
I mean, does that makes it like that almost makes it like a permanent thing that we might have to unfortunately face up for anybody else coming in before us.
We could be setting precedent on a new
That we
bylaw that we
don't
just
want.
created.
That's right.
Well, I will
That,
say,
that bothers
What
me.
what happens if
Yeah.
we say, forget about it, you can't, you have to restore, you have to stick by our rules.
If they stick by our rules, there's no project.
right, it would get approved, I would recommend in that case that it be approved under the Wetlands Protection Act.
Correct.
But not under the bylaw. So if they appeal it, they don't go to DEP, it goes to.
So wait a minute, how do we have to approve it?
Approve it under DEP. That's the reason I made it clear about the regulations earlier. We would approve it under the DEP guidelines, and we would deny it under our local bylaw. And the only way that it can be appealed is Superior Court. It can't be appealed to DEP because we approved it under DEP regulations.
Because if this
Oh,
project
okay.
got,
Yeah.
if this project got denied under Wetlands Protection Act, DEP
Would
would
overturn it.
overturn it like that.
Because
Yeah,
because
okay.
it meets, we know it
Yeah.
meets it. That's the
Yeah.
reason I made it clear. It meets
No,
all
you
of
didn't
our
make it clear,
guidelines.
now you're telling me, that's good, all right, so.
Oh,
So
that's
I
very
do
good.
have a question then
That's
on
very
next meeting, so, you know, Doug, we'll get you a draft order, within the next couple weeks, give you plenty of time. But my question is, do you want a draft approval and denial?
do.
Okay. That's what I thought,
Marty and I already discussed that.
okay. I figured you already talked to
Very
Marty.
Yep,
Well, they're
'cause-
doing something tonight.
Because the hearing's closed, yes.
Yeah,
when we have the meeting with open space, can we have Marty there?
If Marty has time to come here. Don't forget, Marty doesn't live local.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
know.
Marty
That's
lives in
why you
Orange,
asked about,
Mass, which is a,
that's why you asked about the Zoom meetings too. I was thinking
That's
if
right.
it had to be Marty.
it would be very convenient for her to zoom in instead of driving here.
Yeah.
2.5
Marty
hours.
loves driving down to see you guys.
I know, she loves us, we know
We
that.
can still team message
I
her.
would love Marty to
Or
drive
Zoom
down.
message.
I mean, we might be able to have a meeting here and zoom her in to
Yeah.
one of our computers.
Right.
Yes,
that would be
Mary?
good.
I was gonna
Makes
say,
sense.
you could have a Zoom meeting, if somebody can do screen share, everybody can see your plan.
Mhm.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. We could probably do something like that, cause I don't want her driving down here for,
Mm.
you know.
Yeah, the laws still allow for hybrid meetings, so as long as there's quorum here, you could have other people tune in virtually.
Oh, that's-
So anyway, everybody has their marching orders, I've made it clear.
I have a question on the waiver thing. So one of the things they said, they have to provide community benefit, right, is one of the part of the.
Public
Public
benefit.
benefit, which is the trails.
Well,
That we
that's,
haven't approved yet, because they have
the-
to cross wetlands, so that's like another project, so what if we
the-
decline that?
get him, let me
Just
answer
asking,
it.
I'm just throwing it out there.
First of all, the trail is part of the project, that's not a public benefit for the waiver. That's required by the PUD process.
Oh,
The public benefit is the 8,000 square feet of wetlands that was filled on the property previous is being restored.
okay,
That's
because
the
he
public
said it was a
benefit.
trail, it was a public
He's
benefit.
just saying that to make it sound good. That's part of the project, that is nothing to do with our waiver. He has to do that, whether we waive it or not,
Okay.
right?
You're correct.
So,
I'd like to get on our good side, but it ain't gonna work.
like I said, you got 3 weeks to think about it, but we will have to make a decision in that meeting and we will not be able to put it off.
Well,
Mhm.
thank you. What you said certainly kind of solidifies my vote already. I
Well,
think
like I said, you got 3 weeks to think about it.
I will.
Mhm.
Don't forget.
Well, the idea is you have to know what you do and what the effect is, cause and effect.
Don't forget, if we don't waive it, the project does not happen. Just keep that in mind.
That ain't such a bad thing.
I didn't say it's bad or good, I'm just telling you the project does not happen on that way.
All right.
So,
Mm.
I actually have 2 things for you to sign.
Sure.
can I just ask a quick question?
Go right ahead.
Is there, information
Dagger
that we
Street.
need to review?
Oh, yeah.
Well, we're gonna get we're gonna get copies of the orders, but I got copy in order.
I'll get you
Yeah,
copies of yours
before,
prior to here.
Okay.
so, you know, we'll have a chance to,
And this is the funding for the,
How's it
Pleasant
going?
Park Road.
Graduate.
And you had something from November that you were looking at,
Thanks, sir.
the Waiver report or something? No?
December.
No, not yet.
So-
My- The report I have is from December.
So do you guys want a copy of the February 2nd?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
So we'll get the February 2nd and a copy of the draft orders all at once. And I'll do my absolute best a week before the hearing, you think you can have it to me?
I'll try to have it even sooner.
So as soon as I get it, I'll print them out and drop them off, how's that sound?
Thank you.
Fair enough?
Yep.
Very good, yes.
Yeah, 'cause I was all ready to go,
Can't email them,
With
just
all
send
of
them
them.
an email.
so with all the special conditions, I was gonna go right through every single one, that was from December.
Just think about that thing.
Our letters usually don't, stay brief for very long.
So where are you dropping them here, at the town hall?
I bring it to your house.
Oh, okay. I'm just asking.
She has email, you could email.
Yeah, I have
Use
email.
for email.
So then we'll send an
Her and
email,
Lorraine, right?
drop off, obviously.
Yeah.
Well,
Email?
yeah, email.
But she's right across from her.
Well, when we send you the draft, both approval and denial, we'll package it into a file with the orders, the most recent comment letter, and the most recent plan set. So
Perfect.
anyone who you email it to will get everything.
Great,
Perfect.
okay, good.
And then we can obviously also discuss it in our next hearing prior to making a vote or having a vote, so. But I'd like everybody to come here with, thought process, you know what I mean? Okay,
Sounds good,
everything good? We done?
very good.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?